I recently acquired an engine which had a very uncertain condition. It's either totally seized or it works perfectly. It's all very strange, so in this video we're going to establish whether or not this engine actually has had it, or if it can run again. It turns over very well by hand, it's complete, it's got the starter motor, everything on it seems to work. So what could the problem be? I'm just going to demonstrate turning it over, and you can see it turns over with good compression and no sort of scratching and scraping. So what we're going to do first of all is remove the top engine cover, and we're going to see if there's anything inside. Maybe there is a weird foreign object in there blocking the fins for the flywheel. After taking the cover off and inspecting everything in here, I actually discovered that the only thing which was a bit of an issue was the grass, which was blocking the cooling fins. But there wasn't really that much grass here. It can cause the engine to overheat and seize, but there still wasn't a dramatic amount, like a mouse nest or something. So I'm going to turn it again and just see if that's done nothing. It still seems to be fine with good compression. So is there anything actually wrong with this engine? What I'm going to do while I'm under here is just remove this front cover, or pull it back, and remove the fantastic insulation which has been installed into the cooling fins. So just get that out of there, in case I do have to run it again in the future. I'll show you the sort of thing which blocks up the cooling fins, moss and grass, just easy to get rid of. Also, the bolts which were in the back of the cowling were wrong, at least one of them was, so what I've done is I've had a hunt about and I found another good one. So we'll get rid of the bad one. The next thing I'm doing is just draining whatever oil there was left in it. Now this is actually a concern, because there wasn't really much at all. It's very thick, it's like tar, and the smell of it is a very burnt oil smell. So chances are this has got something to do with the issue. Before opening up any engine, what I tend to do is just clean the workspace, because the last thing you want is to get grass inside it. But having said that, I do clean it all out anyway. It's just an extra precaution. Also as well, at the bottom of the sump, you should really clean that too. I forgot to do it in this video. Once all the bolts have been loosened, I use a rubber mallet just to tap the sump off the rest of the way. This way you don't damage any of the casting. And there we have it, the sump is removed from the engine, meaning we can now get access to all of the different areas, and looking at this sump in closer detail, it appears to be full of disgusting sludge, and the sealant which was used was some blue universal sealant instead of the proper gasket. So it's probably no bad thing that I'm going in here, even if the engine does work perfectly. Going back to the main engine, you can see that everything seems to be complete, and there's no obvious damage anywhere, there's no metal filings, so maybe there was another reason, maybe the pulley on the deck or something seized, who knows. All we can do is keep working our way into the engine and discover if there's anything wrong. Interestingly, while turning it over with the vice grips, I did hear a very metallic rubbing sound. As I don't want to remove stuff unnecessarily, I'm not going to go too far into the engine, but I do think that it's worth investigating a little bit further just to see if there is something in here which is causing a problem. Because the last thing I want to do is put it back together broken. So what I have to do here is turn the crankshaft just so that the push rods from the camshaft lobes move off them, so that it frees the camshaft so it can be lifted out. You have to get it to a sweet spot, I suppose you could call it, just so it loosens it off. When this is reinstalled, the timing marks must be located correctly. Here are the lobes and they seem to be fine, so I wouldn't say the problem was with the camshaft. It very rarely is actually on one of these engines anyway. Behind the camshaft you can see that we have what are called either cam followers or push rods. I don't like to mix them up, so I'm just going to remove one to begin with, but they also seem very good, and usually on a small engine they don't really cause an issue. So the next thing which we're going to look at is the crankshaft, the conrod or the piston. It could also be a synchro balancer as well. So let's just start to remove the conrod big end. So to do this, I'm using a 3/8 spanner, but it also requires a 1/2 inch spanner as well. It has two different size bolts for the same conrod. And actually this is probably the first engine of this age that I've seen that on. It's not uncommon, but usually they have tabs. Upon removing it and inspecting it, I discovered this is definitely where the problem lies. It's clear that this engine has suffered one of three things. It's either overheated, it's been left with very little oil in it, or the oil has been so rubbish that it has no lubricating properties and it has just completely seized on the crankshaft. So, what we're going to do is try and locate a new conrod and try and clean up the crankshaft for next time to see if we can get this engine reassembled and working again. Before we do this though, I want to just show you the journal on the crankshaft to see if that is actually too badly damaged. If it is, this project may be written off, but looking at it, it looks scratched and a bit scored, but if that is only aluminium, we should be able to melt it off using a bit of acid. Before I finish though, one thing I did do is take a closer look at the oil in the bottom of the sump, mainly looking for metal shavings, and it actually appears that beneath the oily sludge is what appears to be a layer of ground down aluminium shavings. At least that's what it looks like on first impressions. So yes, I would say we have found the issue here. Anyway, we're going to leave this project here for the time being. The engine may well still be dead, but there is still light at the end of the tunnel, so please stay tuned and I hope to see you again in the next video. Bye for now.